First off, I like the move. The price isn't too crazy here. I know it's a pay bump. It's going to go up by about $3 million into the first year of the extension here, which isn't crazy. I mean, this isn't a mid-20s crazy overpay for Smart here. It is the max that they could have paid him, but you're essentially limited by what you were making before to extend off of. So this is based on that $14 million he was making now, the most they could pay him. It's not that much more than he was getting before. And on top of it, it does help you if you run into a situation here where you either have to trade for Bradley Beal or trade for anyone else, frankly. Now, there is a 6-month period where they're not going to be able to trade him here. So maybe something comes up in that time period where you say, oh, maybe they shouldn't have done that, and they still could have had the flexibility to trade him in any possible deal that comes around.
If Marcus were a free agent, you think that those dollars are available? Of course. I mean, he was making 14 before. He's the same player or better or somewhere in the same ballpark. He's probably more complete now, even if he had a down defensive year.
Yeah, because he came in lower last time than.
Yeah, so I mean, what he's making now, 18 or 19, is 14, from when it's the same money that he was making before, factoring in, what contracts are now. It's not like that's not a ridiculous amount of money. That's market value. He would get it. So he's
pretty much proportionally the Randall extension that New York did.
Yeah, it's not that he's not worth it. It's that is that the best use of your money, and this is so we can talk about Marcus particularly. The problem is I don't know where you take that money and what you apply it to. So you keep letting people walk. You don't re-sign people. You don't hold on to your own talent. You might just end up with worse, because you got to go spend that money somewhere. So without knowing where that's going to go, without having a plan B ready to go, I get this move, especially if you think it's tradable, and maybe it is. I'm dubious on that front because I just don't know that other teams value him the same way the Celtics do. That's always been my issue. He's a great guy to have if you can have him for free, meaning I'm just going to spend money on him because it fits my budget. I don't know if he's a guy you trade for. So I don't know.
So in a sign and trade scenario,
I hate those middle class contracts. The 20 million is real money. It's what he's worth, but it's real money, and it's not a star.
Yeah, but I think oftentimes when you get to where this team has, and I was kicking this around with some friends earlier, it's almost the Hayward situation we talked about. Like, you don't get the 30 million back when you lose Hayward here. You probably get a chunk of this 17 million back if you lost Smart, but nothing toward where you'd be replacing Smart with something better unless you went that, burn the whole house down and put it all on one max free agent route, which wasn't going to be certain, especially if you didn't build the momentum this year towards signing a free agent like Beal. And luckily the situation has gotten better over the last couple of weeks where that seems more likely they're going to be able to do that. But at the end of the day, all this stuff we're kicking around, Smart's a really good player. And that's just like the gist of it for me. You have a really good player. He wants to be here. Other guys didn't. You're paying him modestly more than he was getting before. And you've said this too, like he's a little more valuable here in Boston than he is in other places. So that's probably the premium you're paying within just to get it done early. That could get shaky if he doesn't get better, because my rule with extensions and a lot of people's rule is that you do want to see a guy get better if you're going to start to pay him more. I don't know if that's in the cards for him necessarily. He did have the best year of his career statistically last year. I didn't get a good sense that he got better as a player. I just think he was in a more expanded role.
His usage went up. I mean,
and that'll happen again this year. This, to a lot of people, I think, signal that the Celtics are committing to Smart through 2026 as one of their core pieces. That's not necessarily the case here. It is really just the perfect hedge move. He's happy. The Celtics are happy with him as their point guard for now. And if they need to trade him, his money all of a sudden goes a lot further in doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, that is what it is. I guess, ultimately what it comes down to for me is you still want as much flexibility as you can possibly have. And you want to believe that you could, if you needed to, move this contract. Now, this is where you and I differ. I don't understand. People will say this is a value. You can trade this contract. And a lot of people assume actually this is one of the great things about this contract, that it is now tradable. And I'm, like I said, I'm a little worried that that's not the case, because you don't see very often a case of teams that have decided, we're going to begin our process now. And we're going to strip down everything that we have. And we're going to just do kids and young players. And we're going to trade our stars. And we're going to load up on assets. And we're going to hope that we hit the lottery. You don't see a lot of those teams swinging deals for guys making $20+ million a year over 4 years. And that's what concerns me a little, is everyone's like, oh, yeah, Washington will just take Smart back for Beal, or another team trading his free agent who they're not going to re-sign. And I don't know that that's the case, because it just doesn't, that we don't really see examples of that in these types of trades. You don't really get that. It's always young ascending players, expiring contracts to make money match if need be, and picks. And that's what happens. And Smart doesn't fit the profile of any of those things. So I get the idea that he could be a culture changer, but that more makes sense on a winning team. Or if he were a guy making MLE money, or, as a free agent flyer, yes, bring him in to absolutely change the culture around your kids that might need a kick in the butt. But 4 years, $20 million commitment is a little bit is a little steep, I think, for a team that's trying to strip it down and rebuild.
Yeah, it does depend on the situation there, because the comparison I've thrown out is the Pelicans, who lost Ball. Stunningly to me, took Satoransky and Temple back.
But Satoransky's 1 more year for $10 million, right? That's all he's got.
Yeah, so the money comes off the books in that circumstance.
And that's the thing, is it's a different story. Marcus's extension begins after not this year, right? It begins next year.
Yep. So it's 5 more years total.
If you trade for him in the middle of the year, it's that plus 4, and that's significant.
If you are stuck with Smart for years after that, I don't really think it's like a stuck with thing. He's a really good player, and I think he's going to have a very good year here at the starting point guard role.
You're not stuck with him at all. That's a good point. It is. This isn't going to be one of those.
There's a lot of people who I get a
that's
feeling
silly. I'm having Avery Bradley vibes. Okay. When Bradley signed his extension, and that was $8 million a year, I was working at NBC at the time. And this is a
freak out.
This is a Celtics homer place, and the place lost its mind. Avery Bradley, $8 million for over 4 years. Are you crazy? And I was like,
there was another one like that.
I was like, this deal is an absolute slam dunk. What is wrong with you people? This will be a bargain in 10 minutes, So yeah, this Smart deal reminds me a little of that, which is this is it's still good to have this player. And I don't think you're going to reach a point. He's 27. This isn't in year 2. It's not a Kemba deal or whatever, where it's years 3 and 4 aren't going to be good, but you'll get 2 really good years before the decline. He's still in his prime, at 27 years old. You're not worried about steep decline here, okay? If you have this level of Marcus Smart for 4 years, you're fine. It's fine to do that. It's just, does it get you any closer to being a contender, or did you have to take a different path to get there, and one that did not involve Marcus Smart? That's the only question. As it is, you're right. And that's why I think it's a bit of a hedge. You're fine if he stays here and all he does is play it out.
Yeah, the right answer isn't necessarily siphoning talent. And who knows? You could have gone in the next season after a great year from him at a starting point guard, and maybe he had to potentially pay more. This actually, I thought, was a really good cap on what they would because this under the rules was the most they could pay him. And
yes,
it actually was a pretty good number.
And it's great
offseason, there's no cap at all.
And it's great, actually, because the Celtics can say, this is the most I've got. And,
yes,
and it works for them. And for Marcus, it's this is pretty close to what I'm going to get anyway, so I'll just take it. So it is, you're right. It works for both sides here.